Take us through what your revenue looked like from when you made that transition into Amazon and then through today, like on a yearly basis.
Yeah. So right now, hopefully this year it'll be better since we'll have more time dedicated to the business. So up until about a month ago, I was just part-time. So we finished the year on rolling 365 at 1.7 million. And that was as a part-time business. So that's generally been what we're at. Where I at this point was anticipating usually around 100K months was usually where we were at for items there. So hopefully this year we can get closer to that 3 million is ultimately the goal for the OA and the wholesale side.
E-commerce is the greatest business opportunity of our generation. What is up, people? Welcome back to another episode of the Ecom Unlimited podcast. As always, it's your boy Kaj here with my co-host Josh.
What's going on, everybody?
We are seven-figure Amazon sellers that have been on the platform since 2017. And of course, we're also multi-channel as well, doing a little bit of Walmart, eBay as well. Today, we have on Nick Spizak. How are you, bro?
Doing well. Hey, Josh. Hey, Kaj. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate you guys inviting me onto the pod.
Yeah, man. And thanks for making time. And I will say it was more challenging to get you on the pod until you quit your full-time 9 to 5. So now you have a much more flexible schedule and are able to record with us on a Thursday afternoon here. So just tell me, taking back to the beginning, how did you get started into reselling and then scale it to the point where you were able to quit your 9 to 5?
Yep. So I actually started reselling back in 1999 as a 12-year-old on eBay. So I still have an eBay account that's circa 1999. We were first thing we ever sold. I grew up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So there's outlets that are out there that are pretty well known. A lot of folks come down from the tri-state area. They'll come to Lancaster County, the Amish, and try to find some good deals. So my first flips were track shoes from the Adidas outlet. They were in the back corner, super cheap, and that kind of got me into the game. Fast forward a couple decades, and I grew up always having kind of like an IT background. And sports were a big part of my life, and started getting into the botting community, and that was kind of where I was like, oh, I can figure out how to find these PlayStations and these high-end graphic cards, and that was right in the height of COVID. So there was a lot of opportunity to be able to resell products online. And that was kind of the point where I was like, okay, I see where this is going. I see that, botting's eventually going to get to a point where it's going to be less lucrative. And that's when Amazon really came into scope. Having some of those cook groups, the Discord communities kind of led right in nicely into the Amazon world. Found some of Miles and Warner and Garrett's content and some of Corey's content. And that's kind of all she wrote at that point.
And so that Amazon shift happened, you said, right after COVID?
Yeah, pretty much right after COVID. So as soon as COVID started to wind down and we were starting to get back into the normal swing of things of everyday living and restrictions were starting to be removed, a lot of those hype products, supply chain issues were starting to go away. So I saw that as an opportunity. Okay, well, what's going to be the next step? I really enjoy doing this reselling thing. I like trying to find, what are the arbitrage opportunities in different markets, and it just kind of gravitated, right? Amazon was the next frontier, and that was, I guess, at this point about 3 years ago that we started, selling our first products on Amazon. The first Amazon flip we did fulfilled by merchant, and it was Disney mugs from Target that we had, the 50th anniversary. And
I feel like we sold those too. Did we sell those?
Yep, they were good. They were a good flip, right? If you can get them, I was able to snipe some of those using one of my bots at the time. Target was a big retailer that we used for PlayStations, and it was a natural fit on being able to find products since we kind of found a way to get around cancels by doing that. So it made it a little bit easier.
Nice.
Talk to us a little bit more about this botting game, because I've been always intrigued by the, culture of the botting community, and I kind of understand how it works, but kind of talk us through like how that would go, like setting it up in terms of like what notifications would you get, And then like, how would you determine how many you could get without potentially getting, an order cancel? Kind of talk through a bit about how that works.
Yeah, so if with botting, a lot of it goes hand in hand with the cook groups, right? So for anyone that's not familiar with a cook group, essentially what it is it's a group that you pay for on Discord, and they're a collection of folks that are really good at finding deals. Those deals could be anything from what we know as retail arbitrage today, finding pricing errors, to high-speed monitors. So there's a lot of the times the cook groups will pay these monitoring services that maintain and are constantly crawling the various retailers to see if hype products come in stock. So I had a couple cook groups that I was a member of, and that was kind of one of the ways to be able to notified of what are the types of products that would be good to resell. And then they would also send you pings, or you would get notifications that says, hey, this is when it's in stock. And just like in the Amazon community where you learn sales cycles, you start to get an understanding of how, when certain products are going to come in stock. Same thing was happening with those hype items. You would start to learn Target's schedules of when they were going to get inventory in, and they generally would release them at the same times. And we would get an early notification of, hey, Target's likely going to be at Monday morning between 6 a.m. Eastern and 8 a.m. Eastern. So the botting community goes hand in hand with the cook groups. Cook groups is the information and the monitors, and botting is the speed to check out. And generally what you had to do, and this is where my IT background came into play, is you would have these really fast proxy servers. And essentially what proxies are is it's an IP address. They're computers on the net and on the internet, likely consolidated around the Virginia area with high speeds. And the bots would connect to the proxies, and then the proxies would be what you would end up checking out on some of those websites. So to get around cancels were always a part of the game. I had thousands of accounts. So I would have different various Gmails and what are known as catch-all domains, that allows you to have a single domain name, but different emails, Nick, John, whatever. You can put anything in front of it. And as the retailers would learn different ways to create cancels, we would pivot and come up with different options there. And generally, that's what the botting devs were responsible for, is they would find the ways to find the loop to be able to check out. And then the software would be, the one would be quick to market for those. And that skill set was pretty natural to take into the Amazon community, especially with just understanding like, hey, in the online arbitrage space, working with cancels and trying to find an edge and, doing different experiments of testing one thing at a time. They were just natural skill sets that kind of went hand in hand. And the comfort level to spending money, that is something that as a new Amazon seller is generally something that, that's usually where you're going to be less comfortable with doing that. That kind of gave me a little bit more of a confidence of going through the botting community to say, hey, I know these things are going to sell. I might not know exactly when they're going to sell, but I know that there's a demand for it. So that gave me some of the comfort to be able to naturally spend a little bit more than I may have done if I didn't have that experience prior.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, most OA sellers, that's one of the first things they end up complaining about after they figure out, how to find profitable products is order cancels. And order cancels is definitely one of the things that made me dislike OA. I did not have that background. So you made that transition into Amazon. And so it sounds like OA was kind of the natural first step. And is that what you primarily focused on scaling first, or did you end up going straight into wholesale or something else?
Yeah, OA was a natural fit for me. I found a lot of Miles Warner's content, and then later on Corey's content as he started producing it on the wholesale side. And from the OA pieces, just kind of it was a natural fit from that lens of being able to think through. Just had to learn the skills, just like in any other business opportunity, right? What are the foundations of what you need to do? So in online arbitrage, it's all about manufacturing your margin. What are the different ways that you can stack different moats or advantages to your line to be able to get your cost of goods sold as low as possible? And that was something that was different from botting, where botting you were just paying the retail price. I think if I had some of those OA skills in the botting days, that would have been even additional margin that could have been able to put on there, that I just didn't know at that point in time, that if an opportunity does come in future years where there's, a supply chain issue, or the new PS6 comes around, and if it's in high demand, I will 100% be, dusting off some of those old techniques to bring it back.
I love it. I love it. Kind of walk us through in terms of like how fast and how large were you able to grow your business with OA? Kind of walk us through a little bit of how.
So I've had a 9 to 5 for 15 years. So I would say a lot of the kids the younger folks that are in community scaled faster than me, just based off of time, right? So when you're starting out, you generally probably have one of two things. You're either time rich and cash poor, or cash rich and time poor. So I kind of fit more into the latter of that category, where I had capital to spend, but I had less time to be able to do it. So I would say it took me a good 3 months to really understand the fundamentals. We dedicated 8 to midnight pretty much every day for the first year of the business, and really still to this day, I'm still spending a lot of time in that 8 to midnight window, just out of habit at this point. That's just a good window. The kids go to bed, or past family time. It's a good time to be able to focus. So first 3 months were tough. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's like anything new. Like, you're not going to be great at it when you do it. That's the beauty of the opportunity. If it was easy, it's the old adage everybody talks about. They would all do it. So I had to learn that. Things started to get a little bit easier with sourcing and being able to start to have a crew to work with, being active on social media. About the 6-month mark, that's kind of where I started to feel like, okay, this is something that we can do. And then really where things started to get into a point where I wouldn't say stable state, because things are always changing, but the cadence was there, is at the year mark, because sales cycles, when we talk about replenishment of goods in OA isn't necessarily replenishment every 30 to 45 days. It's usually in the years. You're looking at the sales cycle on a year-to-year basis, and that's where your replenishables. You learn, okay, which holidays you're going to be sourcing for, the windows of time prior to that. So back to school, we're looking in the summertime, starting to get things going. For Q4, we're really looking in the summertime in some items as well. So it just kind of depends now at this stage in the game, in the third year. The sales cycles really come around to, hey, I know what they've done the previous 2 years, and here's what we need to do to prepare for that.
Oh man, that's really good. And in terms of like common, you were talking about, took you a little while to get started, kind of fell into some, struggle in the first 3 months. What are some common kind of pitfalls that you ended up falling into?
A lot of the ones that most new sellers will go through, right? So buying too deep on something that wasn't the right buy, right? So being able to read the data, buying 50 of something that really I should have only bought 5 to 10 of. The inverse of that, buying 5 to 10 of something I should have bought 1,000 of. So those are just like that's just part of the growing pains of being able to look at Keepa charts and getting that muscle memory of, hey, I can look at this product. I know what the velocity is going to be. And that just comes with having your own data of making the purchases and putting the reps in. And there isn't really any substitute to that outside of going through what you need to, which is to learn this business model.
Yeah, absolutely. And then quickly just run us through a couple of different moats, as you like to say, to kind of protect your profitability on products. Walk us through a couple ways that you could do that.
Yeah, there's so many angles to this, and right, the modes are different depending on the business model. So in retail arbitrage, right, looking at being able to get in with some of the managers, understand like it's a relationship game in that space, both in retail arbitrage as well as the wholesale business model, where in retail, right, if you are able to get in with some of the store managers, they'll be able to give you access to the back of the store. They'll probably be able to give you access to when are some of the inventory coming in. Are you able to stack coupons in store that you can't stack on online purchases? So in that space, those are just a couple of the examples. Discounted gift cards are always going to be something that's in play. The credit card points, if you haven't started figuring out credit card hacking and knowing the right credit card to use for what the product is, I would highly recommend that. A lot of the ones that you'll hear on most YouTube or podcasts, Plums are going to give you the extension of your capital, where some of the other credit cards are going to give you the points or the cash back that you can use in your business, the Chrome extensions for cash back opportunities, and any of the affiliate URLs. So there's so many different ways to be able to do that. Looking into, from a technical perspective, I like to look at the source code of websites to see if sometimes there's a coupon code that's in there that's still saved in a setting file. Reddit is great for finding information. So there's no shortage of locations to check. You just have to be willing to understand a few good websites or retailers and understand what their sales cycles are, when their coupons come around, where their customers like to congregate, and embed yourself into those groups. And that's generally where you're going to find the information.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful.
Well said. I'll still to this day remember the first time we were checking out on a site, and Josh was like, you know what, we should just check for a coupon. Buy cost is already good, right? We're already hitting our target ROI, whatever it was. And I literally just went to Google and typed in the website, coupon, and then coupons. And I think the first or second link that I clicked, there was like some 10% coupon. I was like, there's no shot this is going to work, because it wasn't showing on the website. And I typed it in and it worked. And that's when it like clicked for me that, okay, OA is actually real and we're going to get good at this. But yeah, once you find, like, you really just need like 2 or 3 sites, a couple different loops or moats, and then you can run up big numbers with OA.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, as you're doing OA, it sounds like when you transition, right, you're just focusing on OA. How big did you scale OA? Like, what was your biggest month doing just OA?
Yep. So just OA, I would say right now, probably this last December. So we did have a little bit of wholesale that was in there, but generally for Q4, there's a lot of great opportunity with Black Friday that's there. So Q4, we did switch the business model more over because the margins are generally higher, especially at that time of year. So this past December, we did around 300. I think it was between 350 and 375 was our most recent December, and that was almost all entirely OA.
Killing game
for that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what are the average margins that you're working with in Q4 and then like not Q4?
Yep. Yeah. So if it's more wholesale oriented, a lot of the margins for wholesale is going to be somewhere around that 10 to like 15% range on the margin, depending on what the product is. And then on the OA side, we're generally higher than 15%. So it kind of just depends on the product, what type of cashback opportunities we have, and depending on how fast it sells, right? If it's something that's a slower mover, I'm going to be looking for a higher margin on those. If it's something that is a faster mover, doesn't have high return rates, that's a big driver. So the return rates will determine what we will set our buying criteria. I'm okay with lower margin if it's a non-returnable item and I can move it quickly. I'd rather focus more on the profit than the margin itself. And I think that's a big change over the years, where it was more fixated on what the margin was. And now it's more of a, hey, there's more factors that are in play here. So I'll take a lower margin if I can turn it over more quickly, because at the end of the day, being able to have more profit in the bank is the goal of business, right? And it's no different with that. So a lot of this is it depends on those different factors.
Yeah, well said. So sticking on the number side of things, take us through what your revenue looked like from when you made that transition into Amazon and then through today, like on a yearly basis.
Yeah. So right now, hopefully this year it'll be better, since we'll have more time dedicated to the business. So up until about a month ago, I was just part-time. So we finished the year on rolling 365 at 1.7 million. And that was as a part-time business for that. So that's generally been what we're at. Where I at this point was anticipating usually around 100K months was usually where we were at for items there. So hopefully this year we can get closer to that 3 million is ultimately the goal for the OA and the wholesale side of the business.
Awesome. And just so I can get in my timeline right. So 2020/2021 is when you started, and then pretty much just started from zero on Amazon. And then within that 4 years, you were able to scale to 7 figures plus.
Yeah, we actually started on the Amazon side in 2023, January 2023.
2023. Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
so we're just
within 2
entering
years.
our third. This will
Third
be
year.
our third year
Okay.
of selling on the Amazon platform. Yep.
That's sick.
Now,
That's sick.
I hear a lot of like, do you have like a partner or anything?
No, so it's the no partners in this business. Just my wife and I. So my wife and I are partners under the S corp, and then I run the operation. Yep.
Okay, gotcha. I was just hearing like we, like our, and I just wanted to make sure I wasn't too up to date on who your team is. Talk about your team. How many, like, do you have a lot of VAs?
I have two. I have two VAs. So at the peak we had 5. I've learned over time like what type of needs I need in the business. So we've reduced that to 2, both of which I have one that does all of back end admin work. She'll handle all of our reimbursements. She'll look at our leakage reports. She handles our refunds, both customer refunds as well as Amazon refunds. She's also looking at, hey, what type of products are good buys versus bad buys? So that way we know what our return rates are. And she takes care of also our email management. So I'll have her go in as a role into the emails to be able to check different folders to say, hey, these are the ones that I need to be able to take a look at versus ones that they can handle. And she'll also do the chat and phone calls to suppliers if there's things that are there. And then I have another virtual assistant also in the Philippines, and he's responsible for purchasing. So I'll put together a list of what the buys are, and then he'll handle doing the purchases overnight while we're sleeping, and then reconcile our buy sheets both for the prep center and then also for our internal accounting for, hey, this is what the inventory looks like that we've made purchases, following it from purchase all the way through customer, reaching it all the way to the customer. That's
super interesting because I have a question on that, and it'll be interesting because we were thinking about having a VA doing a lot of the purchases. However, we kind of heard in the kind of cobwebs of everyone that sometimes that they were getting a lot of like order cancels because of like location. Could you maybe walk us through like a couple tips if somebody does want to set up a structure like that? Like how that works for you guys, if you have any problems with that.
Yep. Again, so we haven't had any problems to date, and I think that's because we've mitigated with using a virtual private server for the sites that do cancel. So a little bit of context on that. So basically, it's just a PC, right? It's a desktop. It's based out of Orlando, Florida, so it has an IP address down in Florida. And if it's a website that has issues with where an IP address is coming from, or if it's a software that has issues with seeing a Filipino IP address, then we'll use the virtual private server for that. It's about $25 a month, so it's very cost effective as a way to do that, and that gives them also a dedicated connection. So if there's any issues, can't do anything with their internet per se, but if they need to be on something that has a consistent connection and they can at least get to the server, we use that. And then I also have virtual credit cards set up for them for purchasing. So we use Extends as one of our primary sources for that. And we'll use those so that way I can keep reconciliation of what the purchases are, which credit card, will rotate them through depending on if they're websites that we need to have one-time use cards versus things that are reoccurring.
All right, very cool.
Got it. And you also mentioned you're using a prep center, right? So is that part of how you were able to scale as well while you were part-time, or were you doing prep yourself as well?
Yeah,
like, you have the kids set up in the prep warehouse with the college fund set aside for them?
Not yet. So I have 2 daughters. So one's 4 and one's 6.5. So as they're getting older, they will definitely be thrown into the mix. They've helped out with some of the fulfilled by merchant packaging, especially in Q4 when we do that during those opportune times. But for the most part, we're pretty much all prep center throughout the year until we get to an area like we're not above doing FBM, right? If it's the right opportunity, then we'll do some in-house FBM for that. We do I do all of my prep centers through Big Cat Distribution. So we have the warehouse in Pennsylvania and then also in Delaware. So those are our 2 prep center locations for products that need tax benefits, we'll send that down to Delaware, and my virtual team's able to look at the product and make a determination on which prep center should we send it to. And then if it's something that, what's nice is with Pennsylvania, if it's something that shoes, clothes, grocery, those items that would be tax-free, we'll send it to the Easton location.
Got it. Makes sense. And I do want to pivot topics next and go towards private label a little bit. But before we do that, if you could speak a little bit just to like how you've been able to maintain good account health while doing OA, because there is a conception, it goes around, it always goes around on social media or YouTube, just that selling on Amazon is dead or OA is dead. And sure, the landscape changes. It might get more difficult in certain ways, but obviously there's still people that are doing it at a high level and are doing it while maintaining good account health. So just like what SOPs or strategies do you have around that? How are you getting IP complaints removed and just staying within the good graces of Amazon?
Yep. So multi-part answer to this one. So at the foundation, right? And so for new sellers, it's keeping really good records. That's having a main buy sheet. That's making sure you have a Google Drive that you're containing all your invoices. It's having a password management system so that way your team, if you do have virtual talent, your team has access to the credentials that you can rotate those so we can get the necessary documents. We use Bitwarden for our password management system. We use Google Drive to be able to contain our invoices. And then my one admin VA, she is responsible also for checking Seller Central. I give her the rights to be able to go into my account. She has her own role-based access control on her account. She can check for if there's any IP complaints and to submit the necessary documentation on our behalf. So she'll go through, she'll take all of the invoices that are in our Google Drive. We then use smallpdf.com to merge them together and compress them with a cover letter that states, what is the complaint, what's the required actions that Amazon's requiring, and then she'll submit it, or if it requires me to submit it, sometimes Amazon will want to see my email on that. Then I'll submit the packet of information. And that became super critical, just to kind of hit on the account health. In my first year, right, is the worst timing. It was the end of October, and I got hit with Section 3. It was before everybody started getting Section 3s. I was one of the first ones out of the gate to get it. So there was a lot of unknowns at the time. It still is very stressful to get a Section 3. It feels like at this point in time, it's almost like it's just a part of doing business. Everybody seems to get one at some point in time. But I was one of the first to get it, at least to the point where it was on Amazon Twitter and coming across. So that put me into a freeze all the way up until I remember the date. It was December 7th. So from the end of October through December 7th, I was pretty much frozen for that. So that was a tough Q4 to battle through, but we were still able to do reasonable for given the circumstances. And that was a very necessary eye-opening moment just to realize, not that we weren't taking account health serious, but it was to be very cognizant of you can do everything right and still you're going to need to make sure that you prioritize your account health. And that was when I started, really taking it extremely serious of looking at supply chain. And this might be a hot take, but at the time, and still really to this point, right? OA, if you have your supplier is a well-known brick and mortar retailer, if it's a Section 3 related violation, they generally want to see full supply chain. And those large retailers are, at least to date of recording, are looked at as a trusted entity. So your invoicing from those large retailers, generally speaking to this point, have held up really well. I know as we start to talk about wholesale and brand direct and private label, that's going to be even more important in the wholesale space of knowing, are you working directly with the brand? So in the OA space, it's definitely working with the large brick and mortar locations that everybody knows has been part of our business that we leverage to make sure we're staying in compliance.
Yeah, well said. I don't have much to add on to that. But yeah, that's super important for the listeners. If you're considering OA, if you're thinking about wholesale, right, that account health is so important. So take all those things into note. Okay, transitioning into private label. So you told us right before the call off camera that that's something that you're looking to get into, and you're developing a product. So what does that process look like? What is your ultimate goal with that? Do you continue to plan to do OA? Like what's the mix of your business in the future look like for you?
Yeah, so for private label specifically, I just resonated with the being able to have your own assets, right? At the end of the day, you are the brand. And as Amazon continues to get more strict in its compliance and requirements, the model is going to be either you're working directly with the brand through as a growth partner, or you are the brand. And I saw it as a good natural progression to be able to, at the very least, it's a testimonial, right? If I'm reaching out to a brand owner to be their growth partner, there's no better testimonial than being a brand owner yourself, right? It's a very easy conversation to say, here's how I'm doing it right now for my brand. Here's how I could help you. So I saw it as an item where the margins are going to be better in that space. I'm creating something that in the future, if we ever wanted to sell, if it was successful, it's an exitable opportunity. And it just really lended well to understanding not just the Amazon platform better, but being able to have a customer base and understanding all the facets that go into being a business owner and scaling something. So it's the type of skill set that you can use in any business venture. And it just kind of resonated as, hey, this is a really good step. We've taken the time now to understand how Amazon works in the various business models. And it could just kind of lends to the area, the direction that I wanted to go.
Very cool. How now? I feel like this is a very good question. I know you ended up just kind of leaving your 9-to-5 job, so now we have potentially some additional expenses, and now we have potentially a private label product, which, if you don't know, at least the listeners don't know, it's occasionally it can get really expensive in the beginning, and there maybe isn't a lot of return for the first 1 to 3 months. How did you go kind of planning, knowing that all these kind of financial things are going to be coming all together here, and how did you plan for that?
Yeah, I think it helped that I've been a software engineer for a really long time in corporate. So being able to plan ahead from a capital perspective and taking a shot at it, right? So I knew that life isn't going to slow down at any point in time. So this was really that opportunity to have some runway ahead. And being a software engineer, I can always get another remote 9-to-5 or another remote opportunity. So if there's something where, hey, right now I really need to focus on getting to launch and getting through these necessary steps, which are going to require some more time, and we have a little bit stowed away, that we're able to take a shot at this. And if it's something where in 3 months from now we need to pick up another opportunity to be able to do both again, I'm not above doing that, right? I'll find another way to be able to make some additional capital through coding efforts, whether those are gig jobs or if it's a W-2 employment. And that's kind of the way that we're looking at it. Is this is the time to do it, and we'll commit to it for the next few months and then see where it goes from there.
Now, how excited are you to start this process?
Oh, it was pumped. So we got the trademark. The trademark's in pending review right now. It's already, and so when you submit a trademark, it goes out onto uspto.gov, and that's where you'll have it registered. It'll sit there for about a year, depending on the cycles that go through. So we currently have a live pending trademark. We licensed it in a couple categories just to give us some flexibility within the market that we're getting ready to launch in. And went from there. So when you do private label, your customers buy keywords, not products. So that's the biggest delineator when you start to do a lot of the research, is looking at demand at the keyword level and being able to figure out, at the end of the day, it's a feature to a benefit to an outcome. And at the end of the day, customers are looking for the outcomes, and those outcomes are directly tied to the keywords that they're searching for. And they're probably not searching for your brand. They're searching for the outcome that they're looking to achieve. And if you know how to tailor those keywords toward that outcome, that's where it's going to give you the best chance of success and being able to reach the customers.
Just so listeners have an idea of how much money, private label can be to start, what is your budget kind of going into this first product here? And you can kind of break it up in different categories too, if you could. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. So right now, I don't know if this is the right or wrong answer. I'm putting 50 grand aside for this effort to do it what I believe. Like, again, I don't know if I'm right yet. This is just based off of, these are our educated guesses, our educated bets, right? So I'm putting 50K aside, and that's cumulative from being able to have the actual physical inventory through the design of, and being able to have a designer that's going through. I did a lot of the rendering myself through AI with Midjourney, and using Google has new capabilities with ImageRX that you can use to be able to do renderings of items. And then I've used those renderings to be able to help lay out the brand story. And then the brand story is what I'll be giving to the designers to say, this is what my ideal customer profile looks like. Here's what our concept is. Here's how we'd like to market that concept. And then here's ideally what our packaging is going to be. So from design to physical inventory to manufacturing and R&D to the marketing budgets, to be able to have, we're going to start with in-house initially. So we'll have user-generated content through joined brands. We'll be leveraging probably Your First Dollar as one of our avenues for the creator economy, to be able to tie into that. And then we'll also use some of the Amazon influencing as well. So cool. We know the loose blueprint, the rest you figure out along the way. Right. And I'm sure there's going to be hiccups that we're going to need that are part of that. And that's kind of why going with a larger budget is to just kind of give some padding there, that if something doesn't go quite as planned, we've kind of factored that in as part of it. And we know that initially that pay-per-click advertising and doing sponsored ads and laying that out is going to require an upfront investment until we're able to kind of be baked into the Amazon algorithm.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
That's so sick. I'm so excited for you.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like you also have a off Amazon marketing and launch strategy as well. So is your plan to build out like a Shopify D2C and drive some traffic there as well? Or are you going to have all of your marketing drive towards the organic ranking for that Amazon listing?
We're going to use all three. So we'll likely start with, we'll have inventory that we'll have fulfilled by merchant for TikTok. We'll use the same blueprint as we'll land everything in Big Cat in terms of the where the inventory would lay, and then multi-channel fulfillment depending on where it goes. Because I don't know necessarily which channel is going to be one that does the best off the bat. But I want to make sure that I have those channels established, including Walmart, just so that way, depending on where traffic does go, any sale is something that is better than nothing on there. So we'll definitely have all of them. We're going to do them in stages. Obviously, there's only so much you can do, but we'll at least have the marketplaces established so that they would be able to fulfill orders.
Love it. All right. Well, we're going to have you back on in another 3 or 4 months or whatever it is, just to check in and see how the launch is going. Yeah, that's super exciting.
Very cool.
Yeah. Okay. So what is the long-term goal? You kind of touched on this a little bit, but is your dream like, all right, the private label brand just goes crazy and then we're just focusing on that brand and then we scale it to the moon? Or is it like, all right, this is more of the side project and then we really want to grow the wholesale and the OA? Like, how does that all fit in with your vision?
Yeah, I know one of the biggest things that we always hear is, right, you can't be in multiple places at once. You got to focus your direction in one. For me specifically right now, I kind of do look at this ecom world as the one, and there's different mini roads to each one. So right now it doesn't make sense to stop OA, right? It's a cash flowing business. So continuing to keep that going through and leveraging my virtual team to be able to continue to have that particular business, maintain, I guess is the best way to put that. I'd like to just maintain that one and spend a lot of the time on the private label side. Now, there's going to be opportunities that come on the wholesale just as a byproduct of doing the private label pieces. And I think that's where there's going to be a natural fit. If I'm doing listings for the private label, it's also an opportunity to do the listings for brand direct wholesale. So just like with OA, you have to put the time in and understand the fundamentals. I saw the private label as an opportunity to understand the fundamentals and learn it. And then as I get more familiar with that space, supplement it with virtual talent there as well. And I think that'll be a natural way to have leverage to say, hey, if I can teach one or two virtual assistants to be able to do listing creations and listing optimizations and being able to look at keyword research and find ways to use Helium 10's listing builder to be able to make it better. Those are all areas that, hey, now it makes more sense for, okay, maybe we can take on another brand to be a growth partner for them, because now it's something where we can put another member on the team to be able to do the day-to-day of that. That's not going to be an overnight thing. So in my head, it kind of looks at okay, well, what's working right now? The OA side of the business is working. Let's keep that where it is and maintain it. What's the new area to learn? That's the private label. And that will be a good natural fit to say, okay, whether it's brand direct growth partner or our own brand, then I can make a informed decision on where to spend, the majority of the time.
Very nice.
Love that. All right, Josh, you want to land the plane?
Sure. Sounds good. Nick, thanks for coming on and sharing your story. Honestly, I'm excited to have you back on in 3 or 4 months to see how that private label journey is going for you. Where can people go find you on the internet?
Yep. So Nick Spizak _ is my handle on all socials, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. Pretty much usually just on X at this point. I've been a little bit less than in years past on the socials, just with staying heads down focused right now. But plan on documenting a lot of this journey along the way, and we'll have some more updates as we go.
Yeah, we are definitely excited for those updates. Guys, if you got value from this episode, give it a like and subscribe to Ecom Unlimited so you can stay updated on all of our new content. And we will see you on the next one. Peace.
Thanks, guys.